There is a space between working towards something and actually receiving it that most people never learn to navigate well. And because they never learn to navigate it, they fill it with noise, with constant updates to the people around them about what they are building and where they are headed, with the need to be seen in the process, to have the journey acknowledged even before the destination has arrived. The impulse behind this is genuinely human and genuinely understandable. When you have been working towards something for a long time in private, there is a real need for that effort to be witnessed somehow. If the result is not yet visible, at least the striving can be. It is a reasonable response to a long and uncertain process. But here is what that broadcasting costs you, and why understanding the cost changes everything about how you move through this particular season. What you are building right now, the version of your life you are calling in, the change you are working toward, exists in a state that is genuinely sensitive to the energy around it. Everything that is new and still finding its form is fragile in this specific way. It can be disrupted before it solidifies, not because of anything dramatic, but simply because the doubt and opinion and well-meaning concern of other people gets into the forming thing before it has developed enough structure to resist it. Think about a seed just placed in soil. You do not dig it up every few days to show it to people and ask whether they think it is going to make it. You protect it. You create the right conditions, and then you leave it to do its work in the dark, underground, unseen. And one day it breaks through the surface, and the whole thing becomes visible all at once. But the entire time it was becoming what it needed to become, it needed to be protected from exposure. The protection was not incidental to the growth. It was required for it. Your dreams work exactly this way. The gestation period is real, and it is sacred. And what you do with your words and your energy and your attention during that period determines everything about what emerges on the other side. The most underestimated force working against people who are close to a breakthrough is not active opposition. It is the quiet, everyday doubt of people who love them. The family member asking when you are going to have something more reliable. The friend gently suggesting you might want a backup plan. The colleague who has never seen anyone succeed at what you are attempting and genuinely cannot picture it working out. These people do not mean harm, but their inability to see what you see gets into you when you share too early. It plants seeds of uncertainty in soil that is still too soft to resist them. And then you start second-guessing things you were completely clear on before you opened your mouth. You start qualifying your vision. You start building in escape routes that shrink the whole project before it ever had a chance to fully form. The most insidious version of this is when the doubt comes dressed as concern or love, because those are the hardest ones to protect yourself from. You do not want to be closed off to the people who care about you. But protecting what you are building from premature outside energy is not the same as shutting people out. It is simply understanding that not every gift is meant to be unwrapped before it is finished. There is a version of moving in silence that is still performing. The silence oriented around wanting to shock people with results. The quiet fueled by wanting to prove something to someone who doubted you. That version is still loud on the inside. It is still organized around other people's perception of you, and it will not produce what you actually want. The version worth practicing is something entirely different. It is the silence that comes from being so genuinely committed to your own path that external validation has stopped being necessary for you to keep going. The silence that comes from understanding that your energy is finite and that every bit of it invested in talking about the thing is energy taken away from building the thing. The silence that comes not from strategy but from trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, trust that what is meant for you is already moving toward you and your job is to align with it rather than announce it. That kind of silence requires real internal security. It requires being certain enough in what you are building that you do not need anyone else to confirm it while it is still becoming. That is not a small thing. It is one of the more demanding practices available and one of the most quietly powerful. If this is reaching you at a real moment, There is a link in the description where you can support this project. What has been given toward it freely, from a genuine place of resonance, is what makes it possible to keep reaching people in exactly this kind of season. That door is there if it ever calls to you. There is a pattern that shows up consistently right before something significant arrives. A drawing inward, a period of pulling back from the noise, of quieting the outward expression, of something in you gathering back towards center. From the outside, it can look like momentum lost, like the person has gotten smaller or less active or somehow stalled. But from the inside, it feels like something completely different. It feels like preparation, like every part of you is being called back to its center to get ready for something that is going to require everything you have. The people who fight that drawing inward, who try to stay loud and visible and constantly outward-facing during that period, often miss what was trying to arrive. They were broadcasting when they needed to be receiving. They were too scattered across other people's opinions and reactions to be still enough to notice what was moving toward them. The blessings on their way to you right now require a specific version of you to receive them. Not the version scattered across 100 conversations. The version that has come home to itself. That homecoming happens in the quiet. Practically, this means getting selective about what you share and when. Every time you talk about something that is still forming, you take energy away from the forming of it and distribute it outward before it is ready to go there. It means stopping the habit of seeking validation from people who have not been where you are going. Not because their love is not real, but because their map does not include the territory you are navigating. Following someone else's map in unfamiliar terrain is one of the most reliable ways to get turned around. It means becoming more interested in the quality of your inner conversation than the quantity of the outer one. What you say to yourself in the quiet moments, the story you tell yourself about who you are and what is possible for you when no one is listening, that is where everything actually gets decided. The outward conversation follows from that. But if the inner conversation is weak or uncertain or still seeking permission, no amount of outward sharing is going to stabilize it. And it means practicing patience as active trust rather than passive waiting. The difference between those two is enormous in terms of what they feel like and what they produce. Passive waiting feels like being stuck. Active trust feels like being in motion, even when nothing visible is happening yet, because you understand that the most important work is almost always invisible right up until the moment it suddenly becomes undeniable. To the people who have been in the quiet for a while now, who have been doing the work without the recognition, building without the validation, trusting without the evidence, who have had moments of wondering whether the silence was actually just emptiness dressed up in better language. The silence has not been empty. It has been full of the becoming that had to happen before the arriving could happen. Full of roots going down that nobody could see, but that were the only reason anything could eventually grow up. Full of the calibration and the deepening that makes what is coming something you will actually be able to hold when it gets here. Because real blessings, the kind that change the actual texture of your life rather than just the surface, do not arrive before you are ready for them. Not because something outside of you is withholding them, but because the version of you capable of receiving them without shrinking from them or sabotaging them is still being built. And you have been in that building process. Every quiet day, every moment of choosing to continue without applause, every time you trusted something you could not yet see, you were becoming the person who can actually receive what is coming without giving it away before you fully have it. The link in the pinned comment is there for anyone who feels called to support this work. Nothing required, nothing pressured, only what resonates, only what flows freely. So move in silence, not as a permanent way of life, not as a way of keeping yourself hidden indefinitely, but in this season, in this specific stretch between where you have been and where you are going, guard what you are building. Not out of fear, not out of ego, but out of genuine respect for a process that is bigger than any single conversation you could have about it. Stop explaining yourself to people who are not walking your path. Stop looking for permission from people who have not been where you are headed. Stop taking the energy you need to finish the thing and scattering it across endless conversations about the thing. Come back to center. Come back to the quiet. Come back to the knowing underneath everything that what you have been working toward is real, and it is close. The seed you planted in faith, when there was no visible evidence it would grow, is breaking through the surface. The only thing left for you to do is be still enough to see it when it arrives. Protect the quiet. Trust the process. Get ready. What is on its way to you right now is worth every moment of the silence that preceded it.